good morning or afternoon or evening, whichever time you're watching this video. Today we're going to be talking about what is literature and why are we supposed to be learning about this stuff. Um, as you know, for our class, we will be doing two things each day for our class. We'll be working on something that will be our classroom tool, whether that is Power Up, Reading Plus, Newsela, or a different tool that we choose for that day. I will let you know which tool to use. That will be usually communicated through you in person. If you are virtual, I will be communicating that to you in an email based on what we see during the class. So make sure that you're using whichever classroom tool I assigned you for at least 20 minutes a day. The other thing that we're going to do in our class is we're going to do something a little more interactive and something that's going to be involving some instruction. It's going directly from me. It's going to be involving some stuff that we do where we're interacting with different forms of literature, different kinds of reading. So I wanted to make our first one saying just what is literature and why are we studying this stuff? First, with what is literature? Literature is stories. It's really stories in any kind of medium. So that's going to include novels. Obviously, we're used to literature being books. It's going to include movies. Those scripts and those storylines are literature. Lyrics to songs, that's literature. Poetry, literature. Any kind of story that is either written or spoken. But why are we studying this? Why do we have to take English for 4 years? Why have we always had to take classes on reading and literature and had to do book projects? Well, before I answer that, I'm going to be able to hopefully give you some comparisons to our other classes, such as math. It's a lot easier for us to understand why we have to do math, even if it's frustrating or annoying. We do know that, okay, math does involve money. We do understand that algebra does exist in our lives, even if we don't really want it to. Trying to create a new recipe or trying to change something means we have a variable. We're able to understand that if we're working with measurements, that's going to be including probably some variables. We understand that numbers are in our world. Same thing with geometry. If we ever want to build a house, we know that that's going to involve understanding shapes and how they interact with each other. If we're ever working with trying to build something or put something together, makes sense for math because numbers exist in our world. Likewise, science makes a little bit of sense because something like biology, the science about living things, well, you are a living thing. So understanding parts of your own body, the parts of animals, parts of plants, even if it seems like we might not be working with it every day, it makes sense that we're learning those things. With biology, you might not work with it every day, but when you do go to a doctor and they need to explain something to you that you're working with, it might make a little more sense because you understand some of the things that they're talking about based on what you learned through biology or through chemistry. So those two classes are going to be fairly similar because there's a lot of facts in those. It's, numbers interact in a specific way. You can manipulate them a little bit and change them, but they're always going to interact in a specific way. Science is the same thing. Like your body has cells. Cells act in a particular way. Elements interact with each other in a particular way. Once you start getting really far in there, we start talking about different stuff, but science is very concrete. You have concepts, you learn them, that's how they work. History and English are going to be different than those kinds of classes. If I look at history, that's another one that we can probably understand a little more easily. Because history we study or we look at and we study the past so we can understand today. So we can understand what we can and can't do to success. We know that if we look at the past, we're able to say, okay, if I do it this way, this is probably what's going to happen afterwards. We've probably all heard that phrase, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. If you forget that fire is hot. If you forget about that, you might burn yourself the next time you see fire. Likewise, that's going to be with our own political system. You'll see that throughout the future years, but we're able to see if we treat, based in the past, if we treat certain groups of people in a specific way, if we make these kinds of laws, we can kind of say, here's how people will receive it. Here's what it's going to do to people. So studying the past helps us understand today. Okay, it kind of makes sense, but then you're still dealing with people. History makes a little more sense. And it's a little closer to what literature is. Here's where I'm answering that question. Why are we studying literature? Why are we studying these stories of novels, the stories that are told in movies, the stories that are in song lyrics and in poetry? Literature helps us understand people. It helps us understand what kind of people do we enjoy in our own lives, what kind of people and personality traits do we like in other people that we want to adopt into our own kinds of life. What kind of people do we want to be? It also lets us understand different parts of the world, not just the whole world as abroad, but also within our own country, within our own state. It lets us understand different groups of people, different communities, different thoughts. And if we can understand these different ones, we can look at it and say, I like those things of that person. I don't like those things of those people. That guy was a bad guy in the movie. What parts of that person did you not like? Taking the time to sit down and go, who are these characters like? This story followed this storyline. What kinds of things did they do that worked for them? What kinds of things did you enjoy about them? Can you make that part of your life? So literature is trying to understand the world in different points of view. I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to give you a quick example or a quick comparison. So we can see that literature is trying to understand something. History is understanding the past. Literature is studying people of today and or what kind of people we want to be in the future. And as much as we might say that we know a lot about what kind of person we want to be a good person, we want to do these things, we have these great ideas, but we're also limited to what we currently know. We would all be fools if we said that we knew everything, if we knew everyone's point of view, if we knew every kind of ideal that we want to have. That'd be like me saying, I know every kind of food out there. You guys know that I like eating. If I said that I knew every kind of food out there, I would never explore or try something new. If we don't try to find different kinds of stories, if we don't look at different kinds of people and study that, we won't know what kinds of ways to make ourselves better or what kind of world we want to be a part of. We learn about new things and we try to experience these new ones through stories that other people have connected to their own lives, through stories that reflect or try to simulate other people. That is literature. It's trying to understand who we are, trying to understand other people, and trying to understand the kind of world that we are in and the kind of world that we want to be a part of.